G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, we're going to have a look at a very special premium vehicle. This is the CV90-105 TML. Can someone tell me in the comments what the hell that actually means? I know CV stands for Combat Vehicle. I'm pretty sure 90 is the year it was introduced or the year it was designed, like 90s, and 105 seems pretty obvious. TML, not really sure, but maybe someone can let me know. Regardless, this particular tank is, in my opinion, quite fantastic. It combines pretty much everything that I want in a 9.0, and it's premium, and it is fairly well balanced. This is probably the definition of glass cannon. There is nothing quite as fragile as this particular light tank. Any single hit to basically any part of the tank will render it completely destroyed. There's an ammo rack basically everywhere in the tank, regardless of how much ammunition you decide to take, and it's also hull breakable. Now, maybe that'll get changed in the future, but for now, it is definitely not very survivable. The CV90, the platform itself is extremely good. Have a look at that mobility, 50 kilometers per hour on this grassy terrain, and I'm pretty sure it does a little bit more on slightly more solid terrain. But what we're going to be doing is utilizing one certain ability, or two certain characteristics of the CV90-105, and that is the thermals and the scouting. These two are probably some of the more, especially the scouting, more underrated parts of any light tank, particularly as you go into high tiers. The intelligence that you can get from the scouting ability is ridiculously vital, and it only becomes apparent to you when you have almost an entire team of CV90-105s. It's really, really amazing, actually. That CV90 there takes out the T62 that I stuffed up, but we're going to have plenty of more targets to shoot at. As you can see, I'm sitting on the edge of the battlefield because that's what you want to do in the Swedish tanks in general. They seem to be more of a support series of tanks. You don't want to be brawling, you don't have any armor, you don't have any survivability, so there is nothing for you to use in that respect. You should be on the sides, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. However, making very poor use of this gun. I have scouted this, I believe it's a T62M1, and we're going to be doing some more scouting throughout this entire match. I'm scanning the horizon to see if I can find something to shoot at, but unfortunately there isn't really anything. Maybe I can find something. Maybe I can get an angle on those things that have been spotted between the A cap and the B cap. You can see them there on the minimap. There are several targets that I can engage. I just need to find the right one, and there's one. Can't quite tell exactly what it is, and there it is there. T62 taken out in a single shot. The APDS or APF SDS shell works perfectly fine. I use both. I use a little bit of both. One of them is better at penning angles, and the other one is better at penning flat surfaces. So, pick your poison. Speaking of poison, XM1. Not really looking at me, but I'm going to turn the thermals off just because it's easier for me to judge. I feel like the thermals do take my depth perception off a little bit. But if you can use the thermals at every opportunity, they are really, really fantastic. I go for a shot on what I believe is a T62, completely bung it, smash it into the trench in front of it, which is fine. It's already been scouted, so hopefully we'll get some more intelligence on that one later. That looks like a T54. Single shot into the side, nice and clean. Takes it out very, very easily. I believe that is either a T55 or a T62. Track it right there, and he's stuck in the middle of the field. I'm going to go for the other shot and have a look. He's not even aware of where I am. He's probably looking up towards the C cap, because that is where most of the so-called campers tend to sit. In this particular match, whilst it does take me a few shots to kill him, I'm going to be sitting on the outside because that is where these tanks play the best. There we go. one shot just below the sort of the turret bustle. I believe it's the turret bustle, or the nest underneath, where all the crew basically put their feet. That's a really, really good spot to shoot a Russian tank, because if it doesn't have a carousel there, it has plenty of crew members, and you're going to be able to take something out that way. Anyway, I'm going to be moving on a little bit and have a look at the minimap. I want you to just take a look at the bottom at about D3. You can see there's a little red ping, and I'm going to be heading straight for that. This is where the light tank functionality pays off in dividends. I had no idea that this particular tank was here, and if I didn't, there's a high chance that I would have died to it. Now, this is an M60. It's not really a threat, but if it does get the drop on me, then that does become quite a large disturbance. And as you can see, it doesn't really stand a chance. So, now that I've basically gained an entire flank, where do I go from here? Well, the simple thing is to exploit that flank to the maximum. And as you can see, there's I don't know what it is until I fire at it. It looks to me like it might be a T-55 AM1. So I'm going to go for the shot, and I managed to get a side shot onto the commander and the horizontal turret drive. At this point, I think it might be a T-62M or a T-55 AM1. And so what I'm going to do is go for the upper front plate. It's not a T-62M. It's not a T-55 AM1. It's a T-72. This thing does face T-72s. In fact, it will face up to 10.0s because it's a 9.0. It can deal with an Abrams from the front. You need to aim for the weak spots, granted, but it can still deal with them. T-72, you're going to have trouble at range and when the upper front plate is angled like that. But at the same time, you are a light tank. You should not be engaging from the front. You should be engaging from the sides and the rear. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Maybe I can get the lower front plate. No, it seems like I've overcompensated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim for the carousel, which is just off the side armor, and I miss it again, but manage to scrape the track and the barrel, which means that he can't fire back. Giving me a little bit more time. Hopefully this last shot, straight through into the carousel, and bye-bye Charlie. See a little T-72, back to the hangar for you. This particular light tank is really, really fun. It's definitely not for the new player. I would definitely not pick this up as a new player. And this premium is extremely bad if you are a brand new player. What you should be picking this up for is if you're an experienced player and you want a challenge and you want to grind out the Swedish tank tree. If you're a newbie, I honestly don't have a recommendation for a Swedish tank premium. There's just not enough noob-friendly ones, and I would start perhaps gaining some experience with a different tank tree. Maybe you should buy a heavier tank. A T-29 is a good example. A T-30, if you would like to meme around, start with a heavy tank before you move on to things like light tanks, because glass cannons are really, really, really not forgiving. You need to have good map knowledge, and you also need to have an excellent understanding of how teams flow throughout the battlefield. Obviously, there are certain patterns. People will go to certain places over others, and learning to exploit that is something that you need to do in a tank that does not rely on taking hits. This particular situation, I think, illustrates that perfectly. That's a T-55 or a T-62, and unfortunately, he's got his beat on me. He's having a look. I'm going to scout, and hopefully we can get some kills or get some SP or RP or anything off that. He's even able to shoot his machine guns at me. Now, if that was a newer player, as in me, as a newer player, I probably would have pushed that thinking, oh, I can take that because, I have a good shell. Not knowing that the T-54 or T-62 has already angled itself and readied itself. So you do need to be really careful. Speaking of being really careful, that is a Falcon. And did I shoot HITFS? No, I didn't. I shot Dart. So I need to make this next HITFS shot count, and I do. It hull breaks, giving the final blow and a fantastic 7-kill game to wrap things up. The Swedish tree is somewhat fun. It's challenging. But the CV90-105 TML is fantastic. And if you are looking for something to grind out the Swedish tech tree and you have experience in other tech trees, this particular tank is really a good candidate to do so. It seems to be a really good balance between just firepower and mobility, and of course you don't require the armor. Anyway, ladies and gents, that will be it for today. As you can see, I'm slowly going through my Swedish tank tree, spading things and unlocking them with a few of the premiums. Let me know what you want to see, and of course, take care, and I'll catch you next time.